Hello, everyone. Welcome to Atmanexus episode 2 Soul to Soul Talk. So, again, I'm with my friend Jude, and we'll be doing 11 podcasts together. And this is our second podcast. And the topic is very interesting. But before disclosing the topic, I just have few questions from everyone. In fact, every person who is in a rat race, who is living in this society, but has actually forgotten to live. And before we begin, I want to ask very simple questions like, when was the last time you watched a sunrise without taking a picture of it? Or when was the last time you sat under a tree without checking your phone? Or when was the last time you listened to the rain without trying to escape it? We live in a world which constantly asks us to move faster, comparisons, careers, success. And yet, every time I spend time in nature, I am reminded of something extraordinary, that nature never rushes. The sun never rushes to rise. The moon never rushes to appear. Yet somehow everything happens exactly when it is supposed to happen. And Jude and I will be talking recently about how much nature has quietly taught us over the years, not through words, just by existing. And we can see that and learn that by observation. Do you agree with me, Jude? And I welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you, Siddharth. Happy to be here. Yes, I agree with you. I think nature is a wonderful teacher and a wonderful healer.
Thank you so much for being here. And today we'll be discussing the same topic, that nature never rushes. So, Jude, when you hear the phrase nature never rushes, yet everything happens, what is the very first thing that arises within you?
It makes me more deeply aware of my own impatience and non-acceptance of what is. And it acts as a very stark reminder of my own foolishness.
Very beautiful answer and very honest answer, I would say. So, do you think modern human beings have drifted away from nature?
I don't know. I think that human beings are still a part of nature, whether we like it or not, or however much we fight nature, or however apparently separate we appear to become from nature. However things appear on the surface, we can never escape nature. We will always be a part of nature. So, in a roundabout way to answer your question, I would say that humans can never escape nature.
They can't escape nature, but what I mean to ask is, by being in the nature, still we are separate from the nature. If we compare it to the earlier times and see ourselves living now, don't you feel we have drifted away from nature a little bit by being in the nature?
Yes, absolutely. Like being in forests, being close to the river, having our feet on the ground, being able to see the sky most of the time. In that regard, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think there's also a strong argument that everything man made is an extension of nature because it's like the house that you and I are both sitting in right now is made of Mother Nature, right? The bricks in your house are made of Mother Nature's natural resources. It's just our human manipulation of nature's raw materials into different forms.
Even I completely agree with you, because for most of the human history, people have actually lived with nature. They woke up with sun, they worked with the rhythms of the daylight, they rested after sunset. So it was a complete synchronization with nature. The body never felt tired because we used to align ourselves with nature. And today, even after setting up alarms, we don't wake up. We
Yeah.
spend our days using artificial lights. We sleep under the screens, with the screens, I would say, and then wonder why we feel disconnected. And then in the end, we go in search of nature. So maybe our nervous systems are longing to reconnect with the rhythms that actually created them. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I see that as a species, the majority of us are, we do not live in harmony with nature and we do not live in alignment with the natural rhythm of nature. And I think that like many of the things you mentioned, like alarms, artificial lighting, chronic stress, screens, all of these things are disconnecting us from living in alignment with nature. And they're very, very
Mm.
damaging to us. They're very damaging. Being out of harmony with nature is so damaging to our health and well-being.
Yeah, but I feel in today's world, we first create problems and then we run towards the solutions and then we create more problems.
That is one way of putting it. Yes.
Yeah. So, taking it further, like, Jude, if nature were a school, what would be its most important lessons for you?
Wow, that's a big question. That everything is exactly how it is in
Mm.
nature. One tree is not comparing itself to another tree or frantically trying to grow higher than the trees
Mm.
around it. And the birds, I learn so much from animals and watching how animals interact and how they move that no animal in nature ever makes any effort. You do not see the
Mm.
bird putting in a huge effort to fly. It just flies, right? Or
Exactly.
the animals that run fast, they do it effortlessly and gracefully and with purpose. Like everything in nature has a purpose. And the animals live in harmony with nature, right? A lot of animals, they hunt in the morning and in the evening and they rest during the heat of the day. Like there are so
Mm.
many things we can learn from nature, like duality, like light and dark, yin and yang.
Mm.
We can learn about the infinitude of the universe by looking at the night sky. What we can learn from nature is incomprehensible. And one thing that stands out, an experience that I had, was one day I was in a small piece of garden, and I realized that this garden has infinite depth. I could never explore all of this garden, or I don't even understand a blade of grass. But how could this
Mm.
tiny garden be infinite when, in comparison to the whole night sky, this garden is tiny? It really like flipped something in the way I view life.
It's so deep, like so beautifully explained and so deep. I completely understand and get your point here that trees, they're not in rush. They teach patience. A river teaches adaptability. Sky teaches spaciousness, and mountain they actually teach us stability. So nature teaches just without speaking. Perhaps that is why lessons go so deep. No tree ever gives a lecture, yet every tree is a teacher. So, proceeding further with the conversation, I have a very simple question for you now. Why do we struggle so much when something changes, or why do we struggle when there is a change in our life?
Why do we resist change? Because the mind lives off of certainty and fixed beliefs, limits, ideologies. Change threatens the mind, and when people are identified with their mind and have very strong mind identification with certain things or being or ways of acting, change challenges the mind or challenges the ego.
Mm.
I think we can use the
Mm.
mind and ego interchangeably in this context. The ego does not like change because it threatens its very existence. And when we look at nature, nature is a whole interconnected system. Trees, through their roots, they communicate with each other. Science has proved this. They can send nutrients and energies to other trees. And trees are essential for the birds to nest, right? The trees give out oxygen, which animals, including humans, breathe in. Trees absorb
Mm.
carbon dioxide, which animals, also including human beings, breathe out. We are in a constant relationship with nature. And like what probably this is coming to is in nature there is no separation, right? We eat the
Mm.
foods that grow out of the ground and then we give it back. It goes back to nature. Eventually that those same atoms go back to nature. Everything is a circular cycle. And nature shows you the interconnectedness of everything, and it reveals the foolishness and the utter stupidity of the illusion of the separate sense of self. Because in
Yeah.
nature, everything is so interconnected, and we are part of that interconnectedness too. So it just breaks the idea that Siddharth is a separate fragment. Oh, Siddharth is a part of everything else.
Profound.
Not really. I think it's kind of obvious.
Yes. Yeah. We, as humans, whenever there's a slightest change, we get quite uneasy. Whereas if we see nature, it never resists its seasons. Summer doesn't try to become winter. Winter doesn't apologize for being winter. Everything has its time. Human beings suffer because they resist seasons. They resist any kind of change around them. No, it's too cold. It's too hot. We want spring when life is asking us to rest. So we want results when life is asking us to prepare. And nature reminds us that every season has a purpose. We have something to infer, we have something to learn. We just resist everything. And that is where I think the learning stops and we become more and more impatient with time. I feel you agree with me to an extent on this.
Yes, yeah, the underlying principle of it. Absolutely. And I think like non-acceptance of nature causes human suffering, but non-acceptance in general is one of the main causes of suffering. Non-acceptance of what is in any scenario. Like when the semantics of the language, when we talk about nature, really we could be talking about everything, or are we just talking about the greenery and the trees and the rivers? But it doesn't really matter, right? We're talking about non-acceptance of what is, but non-acceptance of nature or the weather conditions or the turning of the seasons is always going to cause suffering, not because of anything that's happening outside, but because of the
Mm,
non-acceptance of what is within
mm.
that human being.
Absolutely. Let me tell you guys, we are discussing such topics because we have experienced certain things as a part of our journey, as a part of our course, as a part of our yogic lifestyle. That's why we are picking up such topics wherein we align somewhere and we see what's the need of the hour somewhere. So, Jude, moving on to my next question. Why do you think people feel peaceful in forests near the rivers or on mountains? Why don't they like the city life, even after building so many malls and cafeterias, cafe culture? They ultimately find peace in forests, rivers, or mountains. Why do you feel that's the case?
Well, nature is our home, right? On the human level, the human bodies which carry our soul, our consciousness, have evolved to live as an integrated part of nature over tens of millions of years. When you look at human evolutionary history, monkeys, primates, humans have lived in the wild, in the forests, in the jungle, by lakes, by rivers, with very, very minimal like technology or like artificial places to live. Most of our ancestors, like for their lives, slept on the floor or slept in caves, right? Our nervous system is still very similar to our humans 100,000 years ago. Our nervous system and our biology has changed very little. Our nervous
Mm,
system is regulated by being in nature, by seeing the sunrise in the morning, by getting natural light in our eyes, by our feet being in contact with the ground and discharging energy, being connected to planet Earth. As soon as we put
mm,
on thick shoes or we only walk around on concrete and artificial flooring, we're disconnected from the Earth because of
mm,
human man-made constructs. And I think that like you and I know this to be true. Like when we're in nature, you naturally feel calm. The mind naturally starts to quieten just from being in nature, whether it's being in the forest or sitting by the river or going on a long hike. It doesn't matter too much what it is. But I think
mm,
it's all about that nature is our home. Like you mentioned, like shopping malls and artificial lighting. These things, like you can tell just by doing an experiment yourself side by side, right? You could spend a day in nature, walking with no phone, no technology, and then you go and spend a day in a shopping mall, eating processed food and watching things on TV and playing games and not leaving all day. So all you get is artificial
Mm.
light and huge amount of stimulation, and see which one you feel better from. I don't think any of this is rocket science. It's just because so many of us have strayed from the path of common sense that the shopping malls and artificial lighting and offices and being busy and being stressed has become normal life for 99% of people, but everyone's sick. And it's partly like when everyone is sick, we no longer consider it a disease anymore. But
Yes.
people are starting to wake up now, and many people are finding solace and peace in from being in nature.
So beautifully explained. So beautiful. And I completely agree. Common sense is not so common. And like when everybody is sick, it's no longer a disease. And nature is always present. And a tree is never worried about tomorrow. When we enter nature, we are invited into the same presence. Perhaps peace is not something we create. Peace is what remains when we stop resisting the present moment. And then the only thing we have is peace. So life is quite simple, I would say, and we are the ones who complex it at every single moment. One plus one is simply two, and we sometimes just try to make it three, four. No, it can't be so simple. There must be something hidden in this, and that is what creates a problem. So, Jude, trees have something. Do you feel they understand something which modern people have forgotten?
I recently spent some time on my friend's allotment with them, um, doing some digging and weeding and also pulling up some of the crops, the onions and garlic and some herbs. And
Mm.
something I realized was pulling up the onions is that long before they reach the surface, they have grown roots down into the earth, and every single tree grows its foundation. In order for a tree to grow into a mighty tree, a tall tree, first it
Mm.
has to build its foundation. It has to spread its roots deep and wide. And I think that's just such a beautiful analogy for us as humans building ourselves and building our life or building our career. You cannot build anything meaningful without a strong and stable foundation.
I feel you're right because before coming to the surface, they lay down a very strong foundation for them, and they grow very slowly, silently, patiently, without comparison. Imagine, Jude, if trees constantly compared themselves and one tree says to another, look how tall that tree is. Nature doesn't compare, nature collaborates. And I feel forest thrives because every tree contributes. And we humans, we don't take ourselves collectively, we take ourselves individually, and we are moving towards a more individualistic society, and that is where the problem arises. So Jude, have you heard the word biomimicry?
I have not.
Okay. When I was working with the school, so we had a science exhibition and the theme was biomimicry. So we as humans often learn from nature. The shape of the aeroplane or the ships or the boats is often taken from the fishes and the birds, the streamlined shape. So that's the biomimicry. Nature always has the answers. we always try to mimic nature. So that also the science, we say that we have made it, and this is the science behind it. It always existed in the nature from the very beginning. So that's the concept of biomimicry.
Yes, and look at, say, how a cheetah sprints and then how Usain Bolt runs.
Hmm.
Biomechanics of how the fastest moving predators on the planet move. They do it naturally. It's not
Yes.
science. They're not thinking about it. They
Yes.
just do it naturally. The human
Right.
mind has distorted so much.
Yeah. That brings me to the same point. We first create problems when life is quite simple, and then find solutions, and then create more. So,
Life is very
without
simple.
wasting much time, let me move on to my next question. Do you feel can nature teach us anything about human relationships, or can it teach something about friendship?
Yes. I'll give an example. You look at, say, when two ducks fight. They may fight, and eventually they will go their separate ways, they will flap their wings, and it appears from being an observer that they completely forget about the experience. They just go
Hmm.
back to their normal life. And they're not holding on to the past. Animals live in the present moment. And the other thing I think that came to mind when you ask this, and this is something I'm really curious about and want to do more research on, but your question has reminded me, because I think it's actually very, very important to our spiritual journey as human beings, is that when animals have offspring, they have children, once the offspring fly the nest, do they ever see their parents again? Or is that it? Are they then just off in the world on their own? And I feel like there's something very significant in that for those humans that are on a spiritual pilgrimage or a spiritual journey.
Quite deep. And I also feel nature never forces connection. The river flows, the bird sings, the flower blooms, and everything comes together naturally. And deepest relationship arises in the same way. When something is not forced, not planned, it unfolds naturally. A random meeting, a shared journey. If I talk about our friendship, it was quite natural. And slowly, deeper connections are built naturally without any force and effort. So, yeah, this is something to learn from nature. And you have also given me a food for thought for today.
Very good. And like going back to the quote that we started with, nature never rushes and yet everything is accomplished, is a quote by
Yeah.
Lao Tzu from the Tao Te Ching. Lao Tzu was a sage, a very auspicious sage who lived approximately 2,500 years ago. And the Tao Te Ching is still one of the most influential books in Chinese philosophy. And it's one of the most influential books ever written. And the story of Lao Tzu and the whole Tao Te Ching is a fantastic book. I'd recommend it to everybody to read. I think it has insights and wisdom that we could all learn from in that book, and you only understand it more deeply the more you read it. Nature never
I'll
rushes, and yet everything is accomplished.
I'll surely give it a read.
Wonderful. Shall we end this episode here?
I just have a last question
Okay.
because we are on a spiritual journey. So, just one last question. Do you think nature can bring us closer to ourselves?
Yes.
Can you give me any example or in depth reflection?
Spend time in nature without your phone, without distraction, and let your experience be the evidence.
Very concise and very, very beautifully answered. So, perhaps nature's greatest lesson is, I would say, trust. Just trust the process, growth, and season. The seed does not dig itself up every morning, and It simply continues. And maybe we can too. So nature never rushes, yet everything happens. And thank you, Jude, for being here and beautifully answering every question with examples and experience. And I would like to share with everyone that what we are sharing is just the experience. We are not giving any commentary or views. It's just our personal experience, sharing with people. And you all are most welcome to share yours. So thank you for connecting, Jude. It was really nice talking to you on this topic.
Yes, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed this conversation with you, Siddharth. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jude. Thank you.